Hello, Jason. It's Friday, April 11th, and I want to start off by apologizing for any background noise you might hear. Because there may actually be background noise now, because my window's open, because it's warm. And so, in my books at least, I think we can mark down April 11th as the official start of Canadian Spring. Huzzah! Now, while we're on the subject of nice weather, I went running last night for the first time in a long time, and I found a curious experience. While I was running, I was actually regretting wearing my thermal undergarments, which in a previous video were described as not working as advertised, but last night were working overtime. And so I'm now up to 36.35 out of 500 miles, and expect that number to keep going up because I'm actually finding it a lot easier to run now. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've lost about 9 out of the 25 pounds I gained over the winter. And so hopefully I'll be able to get back onto that pace of running about 3 miles at a time that I was at the beginning of the Rad Bromance project. Now, for anyone who hasn't ever experienced the challenge of running 500 miles in 1 year, one very important aspect is keeping motivated. And to that point, I present today's Badass Mother Friday, someone who recently has proved inspirational for me at least, in keeping in shape. And funny story, this isn't the person I was originally going to do today's badass video about. It was going to be someone in a completely different field for completely different reasons. But as I was reading through Always Looking Up by Michael J. Fox, my biography for the month, I ran across a character who's been in other biographies I've read as well. And of course by character I mean real person. This person also showed up in Last Words by George Carlin and Still Foolin' 'Em by Billy Crystal, both biographies I read at the end of last year. And so, being a student of literature, I couldn't let the coincidence go to waste. So let me start off by telling you a story. The year is 1954 in Louisville, Kentucky, and a group of 12-year-old boys are hanging out riding their bikes. They catch wind of a home show, a collection of vendors that sell things like washing machines and refrigerators, at a nearby gym. And in the back of this home show, they know, there will be a little room set up for kids to go and hang out, where they have free popcorn and candy. So these kids, being wise like most kids are, decide, hey, let's just go there, grab some free candy, and be on our way. And that's just what they do. They bike up, lean their bikes against the wall, head into the home show, grab some candy, and come back out. Only, for one of these 12-year-old boys, the story doesn't have a happy ending. When he gets outside, his bike is gone. And so he runs back into the show looking for some sort of policeman who he can report his stolen bike to, and finds out that there's one in the basement offering a boxing class. And so, being exposed to this class, the young boy decides, hey, maybe I should take up boxing. At least that way I can defend myself if someone tries to steal my bike again. And that's how a young man named Cassius Clay started his career in boxing, a career that would make him the greatest of all time. Fast forward 10 years and Cassius Clay has fought his way up the ranks into a title match against Sonny Liston for the World Heavyweight Championship. And, in a stunning upset, Clay is able to pull out the victory and quickly becomes the biggest name in professional boxing. At the same time, though, Clay becomes involved in intellectual and radical revolutionary groups, like the one belonging to Malcolm X. And it's through just such a group that he decides his birth name, Cassius Marcellus Clay, doesn't belong to a black man, it belongs to a slave. And so he decides, forget the fact that I'm the biggest name in boxing right now, I'm gonna change my name. And that's why a lot of people don't know today's Badass Mother Friday subject as Cassius Clay. They know him as Muhammad Ali. But being the World Heavyweight Boxing Champion and changing your name isn't really enough to get you listed on Badass Mother Fridays. So as you may have suspected, the story doesn't stop here. 3 years after his title fight with Sonny Liston, Muhammad Ali was conscripted to fight in the Vietnam War, a war which he opposed both personally and religiously, having recently converted to Islam. He was thus charged by the US government with draft dodging and stripped of his World Heavyweight Championship title. Beyond that, he was forced to pay a $10,000 fine and was sentenced to serve 5 years in prison, a fate which luckily he was able to avoid through appeals. But nonetheless, he didn't fight professionally again for another 4 years. But once he was back, and after fighting through the ranks again, he found himself in a position to win back the World Heavyweight Championship title that had been stripped from him. And on October 30th, 1974, the stage was set for one of the most exciting and anticipated boxing events there has ever been, a little something you may know as the Rumble in the Jungle. This time, Ali would be going up against George Foreman, widely considered the strongest puncher in boxing. And so few people were convinced of Ali's float like a butterfly, sting like a bee style that odds against him were usually 7, even 8 to 1 against. But nonetheless, in a regulation 15-round boxing match, Ali was able to take out Foreman in 8, becoming the world heavyweight champion again. He had earned the title of world's greatest, lost it due to a technicality imposed upon him by a government he didn't agree with, and then fought his way back to the top again. But this illustrious boxing career, strictly speaking, isn't why I picked Muhammad Ali for today's Badass Mother Friday. The reason I did pick him is because of his trademark wit and humor, and the way that he deals with situations that he believes involves inequality or unfairness. In Still Foolin' Him, Billy Crystal talks about the way that Muhammad Ali had his back even when he didn't need to. They met in the first place because early on in his career, Billy Crystal did an impression of Muhammad Ali that was so spot on, he was asked to perform at a tribute and an award ceremony. From that point on, Crystal says, Ali started calling him little brother, referring to him in a way that was familiar even though they had just met. And years later, Ali asked Billy Crystal if he wanted to go running with him one morning at a country club. But you see, here's the thing. Traditionally speaking, country clubs weren't that welcoming to specific groups of people, one of which was a group that Billy Crystal belonged to, Jewish people. And so he said to Muhammad, I can't run there, they won't let me in, I'm Jewish. And Muhammad said, you know what, I don't want to run there either, and he never ran there again, even though he'd been running there for years. You see, this is the kind of person that Muhammad Ali has been through his entire career. He's someone who, when he sees injustice, he recognizes it and does his best to consolidate it with his own beliefs. And the reason that I chose him for today's Badass Mother Friday has to do with an inscription he put on a car in 1974. He wrote, "The man who at the age of 50 sees the world the same as he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life." And this is exactly the point. Undoubtedly, in the early years at least, Muhammad Ali had some very controversial and quite frankly wrong opinions. But over time, he's been able to see through the eyes of others and understand that sometimes you're just wrong and you have to change your opinions. If you have about 45 minutes, I highly encourage you to watch a video that I'll link below about Muhammad Ali being interviewed by David Frost in 1974 and more recently. I can guarantee that within 10 minutes you'll have fallen in love with Muhammad Ali, and then later on you'll say, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the person I thought it was, but by the end you'll decide he was a good person after all. And if nothing else, he's good for a laugh. And now on to Battleship. Your move indeed was a hit, and you did sink my battleship. And I retaliate, as you expect, with J2.